This is Michael Clara. Welcome to another edition of my blog, Local School Boards Can Make a Difference. The title of this one, what's in a series of blogs that I'm making titled Stop the Corruption. This one is subtitled To Bear False Witness, and it's part 2 of this overall series. What happened was, and you can read more about this or see more about this in part 1 of this series, but basically a couple weeks ago, the Salt Lake Tribune ran this story: Utah GOP and NAACP slam SLC schools over diversity department move. And yesterday the Salt Lake Tribune editorial board wrote a really nice, interesting, insightful, I should say, editorial on this issue. And in part 1, I commented on each of their the points that they made and gave my perspective on it. And one of the ones that the quotes that I'd like to bring out here is that the board president, Heather Bennett, who said details of the change were a confidential personnel matter, were less than satisfying, and I agree with that. And then the editorial board points out, if any particular district administrator isn't performing up to expectations, that can be an internal matter. But to rearrange the lines of responsibility on the district's administrative flow chart is not a private, personal decision. And they're right on with that. One of the things I want to devote the next few minutes to on this particular entry to was one of the comments that was made in the Tribune in this story, and then the same person made comments in the prior story too. But this person says, why did you not ask the question of why the person is facing this org chart change? It is not a reflection on the importance of the job duties. The current person outright lied about having a PhD, even had it put on her nameplate. Intellectual dishonesty in an education institution is unacceptable. You know, what's unacceptable is bearing false witness against another human being, especially one like Kathleen Christie, who has served our community, who has been an educator for decades here in the district, and has towed the line on issues of equity in the face of opposition from an institution that was run by people that, and still is to some degree, that feel that they have white privilege, and they're perfect examples, textbook cases of what white privilege is all about. And then here you have somebody that apparently knows some detail. They actually know more detail than I do, because I haven't even been told officially what the charges are against her and why this move was made. I've heard a lot of gossip. So I can, that's what I want to respond to, is what I do know and what I've looked into based on the accusations that are out on the street. And first of all, the nameplate issue. That's not accurate, because as you see here, you can't see Dr. Christie's nameplate from here, but it just has the first initial in the name and then the title. So there's no place. And here you can see Withers, and there's nothing on there that says that they're a doctor or not. So that's not on there, according to this anonymous person that's just behind the cloak of anonymity, is making these accusations to perpetuate what McKell has already started. Here's from the webpage. I pulled this off this morning. Same thing, assistant superintendent. There's nothing in there that says doctor or anything like that. So let me back up a little. Back in the fall, when the superintendent did this, started his shenanigans and reorganized the district superintendency without board approval. This is a picture of the community that came out. And this is one of the bigger groups that I've seen at a board meeting about an issue. And they wanted this corrected, which in large part it did get corrected. And I've covered that in other blog entries. As a result of that issue, I had sent on October 24th, you can see the date here, 2015, I sent a letter and I addressed it to Dr. Christie, and I apologized to her for the way McKell Withers had treated her. And basically what he did, he demoted her in order to put his 3 people in place as a deputy, as chiefs of education in different categories, and they were on the associate superintendent level. And when I sent her this letter, I saw her a week later at a board meeting or at a meeting at the district, and she just told me, hey, I'm not a doctor yet. I have not defended my dissertation, but that'll happen in a few weeks, is what she told me at the time. And what she was referring to is that when you're working on your doctorate, this is kind of the timelines that I've pulled off of Google, and it just shows that you go through this process, and that, you know, each country has a different process, each institution has a different process, and in the United States, and especially here at the University of Utah, where I've confirmed this, is that once you defend your dissertation, if you're successful in defending it, they call you back into the room and they refer to you as doctor and congratulate you. And indeed, that's what happened with Kathleen Christie in November. And so it's appropriate at this point to refer to her as doctor, and which I do. And back in October 29th, when all this mess started with McKell and this unauthorized reorganization, I sent an email to the business administrator asking her I wanted to know where the chiefs were at, these 3 appointees of McKell, you know, what their degrees were, how much they were getting paid, how much are they going to get paid. And here's the response that I get from Janet, and she included Kathleen Christie in this response. And you can see here, she points out here that Kathleen Christie at the time has a master's degree, no doctorate. So the district was well aware on October 29th, 2015, that she did not have a doctorate degree at that time. Then on February 11th, 2016, the board president writes a letter, and she starts referring to her as Dr. Christie. And I have not talked to the board president as to why she did that. And I'm assuming she did that because Dr. Christie successfully defended her dissertation in November of the, 4 months prior to this letter going out. So then, just to give you an example, and there's multiple I could cite, but because people have brought them to my attention, but I'll share this one because I was there. On Saturday, May 28th, as this indicates, a new superintendent had a community meeting here in my neighborhood at the Glendale Library. And people from the community showed up, employees showed up. It was a really good turnout. And in this meeting, Dr. Cunningham asked everybody to introduce themselves, and they did. And as we go around the room, a principal from our school district was there. She introduced herself as doctor. And I didn't know that she was a doctor. I was aware of this principal. I had no idea she was a doctor. And I find out later that, she says that she had defended her dissertation 2 weeks prior, or a few weeks prior to this meeting. So she felt comfortable and felt it was appropriate to identify herself as doctor, which is fine. It is that there's nothing wrong with that once you've successfully have defended your dissertation. The problem is that in this school district, we treat white people different from the way we treat ethnic minorities. So if an ethnic minority says, in Kathleen Christie's case, that she has that she's now a doctor, everybody wants to challenge that. But if a white counterpart says that she has a doctor degree, that's fine. She's okay. So coming back to this email that I got from Janet Roberts on October 29th, it also has on here the superintendency salary schedule, and you'll see on here there's a pay differential on here, and that you get paid differently based on the degree that you have. Now, in our school district, we have a policy on how this would happen, and a person would have to fill out an administrative application for salary lane change. So back in last year, when this rumor was going around that Kathleen Christie really wasn't a doctor, I asked the HR director if she had turned in one of these forms, and he says she had not. So as far as I'm aware, nothing has been turned in this fashion where she's saying that she has a PhD, because I believe she's waiting for the next step that's beyond successfully defending her dissertation. So this is why, you have this kind of reaction from the community, because they recognize and they see this for what it is. That it's bearing false witness against, one of the stalwart educators in our community. This is a picture of me and McKell Withers in 2012 when I first got elected to the board, and I'm just embarrassed to be part of this organization. I'm here by choice because I asked my neighbors to vote for me, and I feel that I have successfully have represented their interests in trying to change this institution so that it works for our community. This is our school district. That's why it's a public school. It's not this man's, and I'm glad that he's gone. I'm not happy, though, that we're still having to clean up his mess. And one of the things that will be the hallmark of his administration is the way they go after people. And it is about bearing false witness. This is an example. Here we have the board president, Heather Bennett, who was an excellent student of the master manipulator, McKell Withers, and she carries out, and learned well from him. And this is a case in point where, they criminalized my dissent and made me to look like a criminal because, they didn't like me disagreeing with them. And so I embraced the stereotype. And they weren't successful in labeling me as some outcast and some criminal, and it backfired on them. And so the same thing happened here, unfortunately, with the Lunchgate issue. This is a picture of me and Miss Shirley. This is Tribune, where it says, Uinta parents are saying, we love the cafeteria lady, blame hires ups. The Uinta parents recognize, and they don't even have the history that I do with the district. They knew what this district was about, and this is what they do. They go after people, and they don't address issues. They just injure people, and literally will just fracture people's lives. In this particular case, Miss Shirley, we just buried her several months ago, and she died, I believe, before her time, in large part because of the way she was treated by McKell and his minions. And this is just the way they do. We see them doing this to Kathleen Christie now. In this case, this is really what McKell is about, is the accolades and the stroking of his ego. And here you have the other superintendents in Utah giving him a thumbs up. And this is what McKell hears in his mind all the time, in his head. And if he feels that volume dims by any rate, he gets upset. But let me go back here in time when McKell got hired and make a point here. He got hired in 2002. And as you see, this article here says that Withers received his bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of Utah and completes a doctorate degree in educational leadership and policy from the University of Utah this year. He begins work in January. Well, what I found out as I'm looking through this paperwork, and that it looks like in going through the minutes of the school board meeting, in 2003, they start referring to him as Dr. McKell Withers. Prior to this time, he's just Superintendent Withers, and then something happened where he told them, or I don't know where they got the idea, that he was a doctor now and could be referred to as such. But the problem for me is when you look at the records up at the University of Utah, they're saying that he received his doctorate in 2005. And this is a bio that they have of him up there. You can go to the University of Utah webpage and see this bio that they have of him. And it's showing here that, he got his bachelor's in 1978, his master's in 85, and his doctorate in 2005. But, I went up to the University of Utah yesterday and got a copy of his dissertation, and it says that he received his degree 2005, submitted this, and publication date of his dissertation is 2005. So that's just odd. I find it odd that this man is okay with being referred to as a doctor in 2003, prior to when he defends his dissertation. But here you have a African-American woman today who defends her dissertation successfully and is referred to as a doctor, and McKell wants to call her out on it and wants to make it something nefarious when it's not, when indeed he was the one that was, according to this documentation, he's the one who actually has the problem. And so this is, white privilege at its best, where there's a different set of rules for white people than there is for administrators of color in this district, which is why this backlash is happening in in the community. And because these elders of the community are not going to stand for it. And it's time that we change the attitude in this country. And this is why you see ethnic minorities throughout the country that are frustrated, like with the police. But I'm here to tell you, this is happening in the Salt Lake School District. And it's probably happening in other institutions too. I can only talk about what I've seen, and it clearly is happening. This is an example of it, where a person of color has a different set of rules and is treated unfairly than white counterparts. So going back to this guy, Anonymous here, who says, makes these allegations, I'll cover in part 3 the rest of what he's saying. But for now, I'm going to end part 1 on this part and just point out that this is what we're dealing with here, and we have to correct it. We're in Salt Lake City, Utah. I have an obligation as an elected member of the board to correct this, and I am. With members of the community, we are standing firm and standing tall and behind Kathleen Christie and defending her right to be an educator, and in defending her right that she has worked hard to obtain her doctorate, and her character has been maligned by this man, McKell, who's no longer here and has no accountability for his actions, but he can injure people and continue to injure them even after he's gone. And that's his legacy. But, my responsibility is to my community and those of us that still live here, and we're going to continue to do what we can to correct this injustice and to create an institution that'll educate our children and treat them with respect, regardless of the color of their skin. Thank you.